and then just,
Stop the recording.
right, okay. Good evening, everyone. Just checking that the folks on Zoom can hear us. And I would ask, we're here for a number of applicants this evening. The planning board members are all here. Our counsel, Ashley Torres, is here, and our engineer is, I believe, online. Joe's online, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if the folks, because I don't recognize everybody that is on the Zoom, if they, for the benefit of the minutes, if they could just unmute themselves. I'm going to start with Bernadette, and just identify yourself, and I'll run through my screen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bernadette Condon. I'm with the law firm Lum, Jasko, and Positan, and I'm here this evening on two matters. One is the Perna matter on behalf of Palatacci, Stuart and Joan Reitzfeld, Jessica and Brendan Nave, and WABI. And I am also here in connection with the application of Ms. Sophia Delana.
Okay, and then Brendan.
Yep. You know, I'm here on behalf of myself, Brendan, and Jessica Nave on Lookout Stable Road.
And Sophia is an applicant.
I'm here.
Okay. And Stuart, it's just the Reichfelds jointly, two different folks. And then Jack Longo is Zach, sorry.
He's with Weston and Sampson.
Oh, he's with Weston and Sampson. All right, Karen is here. Good evening, everybody. And we have Paula Tachi on, who is a neighbor, Sheila Trellins, who is the chair of the bar, and Casey is like Tuxedo Club, and Karen Arendt. So, and Randy St. John from the Tuxedo Club. You all set on that with Desiree, with everybody? So the first matter this evening is the Tuxedo Club. And John Ledwith, who may be below your ability to see here, I'm not sure. Oh, I guess you can see him, is going to do an introduction on that application.
Yes, the Tuxedo Club has modified their original application and reduced its scope considerably. The application now only consists of modifications to the member parking area directly in front of the main entrance. It involves some landscaping and some regrading. There was an environmental assessment form submitted previously. There was a prior approval granted previously by both the BCA and the Board of Architectural Review. Since that time, there's been a change in the laws, which now requires the planning board to approve this application, largely because the Tuxedo Club is a commercial entity and not a residential property.
So in a excess of full disclosure, Jay and I are both, Joanne Hansen and Jay Reichgott are both members of the Tuxedo Club. We don't feel that influences our ability to make a decision about this. My understanding is that there is an issue regarding, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at the people and then the screen simultaneously, an issue that needs to go before the bar in terms of lighting. But Karen, if you could discuss if there are any changes from the prior application, or is it as previously presented?
The big change is the elimination of separate entrance ways for the employee parking, and the club decided to leave the parking where it is, eliminate the separate entrance for the employee parking as well as the service entry. And now the service entry will stay the same as it is pretty much. The change in the parking area, there'll be a one-way in and a one-way out. The whole parking area will be raised so that curbs are not, it's going to be raised slightly so there's a better handicap access. We're also improving some drainage over in the corner of the club where the bar entrance is to eliminate icy areas. We've added bioretention in the middle of the parking lot to cleanse the stormwater before it goes into the reservoir. Right now, the stormwater just goes directly into a pipe into the reservoir, so that's a big improvement for stormwater quality. We are adding a couple of light fixtures so that the parking area is better illuminated. But that's not a change from the previous drawing. The only change from the previous drawing is the big change is the elimination of the service entrance and the employee parking area. All the rest of the whole rest of the drawing stayed the same, including landscaping, drainage, the bioretention area.
Does anyone have any questions?
No, I mean, I guess it's, so basically this is a reduction in scope from the previously approved project.
That's correct. In fact, our impervious surface area for the previously approved project was 38.4%. Now we're at 37.1%.
Rich, do you have any questions? So if with that, can I have a motion to approve the application? All in favor?
Aye.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Okay. Good night.
Good night. The next application that is on the agenda for this evening is the Perna new build. And the folks, would you like to just all identify yourself for Desiree, and we've got the folks also tuning in remotely. So Mr. Perna is here.
John Favela.
Jamie Machado.
Troy Wojciechowski.
And for the benefit of the folks who may be tuning in to this application for the first time, this one is in progress. We are going to be reviewing the matters that are before the planning board this evening. I will add that the Orange County has reviewed this application, and we have received comments from the neighbors, which has been distributed to both this board and the bar. And those comments will certainly be taken into consideration as we do the review. So with that, there are a number of, Joe had a number of engineering issues that he had asked to have addressed. And I think perhaps it makes sense to walk through that, Joe, with the current status of the questions you had asked regarding the site plan. And Mr. Zongel is our engineer.
Sure, thank you very much. Joe Zongel, Weston and Sampson. So we reviewed site plans that were submitted originally on May 16th, 2022, and they were revised on August 10th, 2022. And received on August 30th. We put together a comment letter with 17 comments. A few were new comments. Most of them were outstanding comments from prior reviews. We did receive an additional submittal that was provided yesterday. We have Zach on the call. Zach and a few members of our team started to look at those documents. I don't have a final response to that, but it does appear based on the preliminary feedback that I've received that a majority of the comments have been addressed. So I don't know if you want me to go through the comments we had prior. Those will be pertaining to the official letter that we provided. However, there have been revised documents that have been provided. So I don't know if that's a fruitful exercise at this point.
Jay, do you have comments on as Joe noted, we received the comments on the 10th. So this review is not complete. I think it might make sense, Joe, just to touch down them, if you have that letter of September 10th, to focus on the ones that, and we in our engineering are reserving final comments on all of these topics. However, just touch down through the various matters.
Sure, yeah, because I think I've seen the letters submitted by some of the neighbors and their attorneys. So I think a lot of these comments touch upon those comments that were provided recently. So I'll just give you the general summary of the nature of the comment. So the first comment was pertaining to drainage. So there have been a significant amount of drainage improvements provided since the beginning of this application. The comment that we had is that the inverts shown for one of the stormwater retainage areas that they're shown, the outlet pipe was located lower than the bottom contour of the pond. It appears that has been addressed. And like I said, well, Zach, you can feel free to chime in if what I'm saying is incorrect. I haven't had a chance to review the most recent documents myself. I've been out on paternity leave. My wife gave birth to our second on Friday. So
Congratulations. What did you have?
thank you. It's another little girl. So I'm outnumbered 3-1 now. So
3-1.
well, counting my wife, I'm
Okay.
So we had 2 comments regarding the water service. We were requesting that the existing water main along Lookout Road be shown. Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the original location was at the cul-de-sac, and now they're proposed to connect on Lookout Road up the hill. And then we had a question regarding the proper service connection being shown. We wanted to have a tap put on the water main with a shutoff at the right of way for the village to be able to operate that. I believe that's been addressed. There was some comments regarding the gravity wall along the driveway. There were a few gravity walls that were shown. One was up to 15 feet tall. We requested details and calculations demonstrating the ability of the retaining wall to function as intended. Details have been provided. I'll have to check to see if structural stability calculations have been provided as well, but it appears that the majority of those comments have been addressed. The septic system, we were looking for some additional detail, including invert elevations of pipes. We had a recommendation about the location of the septic tank to make maintenance easier, providing cleanouts between the house and the septic tank for maintenance issues. That's also just general recommended engineering practice. There was an issue with the absorption field. The cross slope was greater than 15%. I believe that has been addressed in this latest submittal. The leach field has been revised to have a different setup with multiple distribution boxes. So we're looking to confirm that even distribution between the laterals we provided to ensure that, or not ensure, but to allow the system to operate properly for an extended period of time. Obviously, we want to make sure that the sanitary sewage is handled in an appropriate manner. Erosion sediment control. We wanted locations shown for topsoil and soil stockpiling areas to make sure that those are appropriately addressed with silt fence to make sure that erosion is not provided to that there's no erosion going on to neighboring properties. Also, the location of a concrete washout area, which is standard practice per the DEC manual. I believe those 2 have been shown in the site plan now, as well as details of those. Providing a detail of the stormwater drainage overflow structures that has also been provided. The prior submittal showed roof leaders connecting to hard pipes to the stormwater system. We had concerns about back pitching and location of the pipes. It appears that those have been adequately addressed at this point. Finally, we requested that our comment letter be responded to by the applicant's engineer with written comments to help ensure that all of our comments have been addressed and provide any feedback if they feel that they've addressed it in prior submittals, we are in possession of that letter. And it has helped expedite the review and ensure that our comments have been addressed. So that's a general summary of the comments and an overview of where the application currently stands from an engineering perspective.
So, Jay or Rich, do you have any comments in relation to these engineering items, which, as I say, are still in the process of being reviewed?
No, I mean, they're still in the process of being reviewed. I mean, I think we're working through them. And I expect they'll be fully reviewed. I mean, fully resolved. It's not unusual for that to take a couple of rounds.
So-
I have one.
Okay,
Okay. The slope of the driveway. If I go back to my high school math, it's a rise over run.
Mhm.
Okay, and you know, if it's a rise of 100 feet and a run of 100 feet, divided out, that's one that transfers to 45 degrees. Okay, so I haven't seen the rise over the run on any of the papers I've seen, so I can't figure out the slope.
Zach, I believe on the prior, and I'm looking at the most recent submittal, was a profile of the driveway provided.
Yes, there was.
And we had our team look at that. It appears that it's within the 10% slope threshold. But before I issue my final comment letter, we'll verify that. But a profile has been provided, which provides on a graphical basis the elevation from the start all the way through to the end of the driveway along the horizontal axis. So that will provide a pictorial depiction of the slope of the driveway. So I believe the plans have been shared with the board, so that should give you an opportunity to verify the slope for yourself as well. But that is something that our office is looking at, and we understand that's a concern of the board.
so Mr. Perna, would you like to put the plans for the property down and we can just see the current presentation and the contour lines and the proposed maximum
I have plans here. Plans. Jack, do you want to sit up here and just maybe walk the board through it, or if one of your engineers wants to walk the board through it?
And for the benefit of the neighbors, these plans are available at the village office. You can come in and take a look at them.
We should turn this around, right? Or we can take, there's 3 sets here. We can put one set in your direction, keep one set in our direction.
John, if you'd like, I do have the plans on my computer. I can share the screen for those at home to follow along if they so desire.
Super, that would be great, Joe.
Okay.
Now, 1 second. I've got to see it.
Can they, will they just be seeing that or will they be seeing us too? Is it like one or the other?
Usually the little pictures are up in the corner.
Okay.
We're gonna be looking at this sheet.
The sheet, no, we won't know who you are. The sheet here. This is this on sheet 4 is where this driveway profile,
Okay.
the layout, the rise over run.
Oh, they do. have a
Diagram. So, I mean, it's vertical scale, right? So this is the elevation change. This is the distance change. And of course, it's been unfolded to make it into a straight line,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, what it's showing is that the lead in from the road is 4%, and then there's a very long 10% slope up to the apron of the garage. More or less.
Right.
Joe, jump in when I say something wrong.
And
Nope.
the applicant
Spot on.
has, and the applicant has been before the board of trustees to get approval for the driveway.
There's also, Wait.
Oh, an even better one.
Yeah, no, this just
Elongated
is like a
driveway
one
is
interval,
nobody
so
will
for every
know.
20 feet,
Nobody
goes
wanted
up 2
anything
feet.
more than 10
equate
degrees.
to 6
Okay,
degrees.
only
or
one, person speaking at a time, or people are going to get confused. So who wants to go first?
Just to point out what Jay was saying, this is sheet 4. So those words referring to, and there's also a unit diagram of what happens between 20 feet to, vertically at 2 feet, which equates to 6% or 10% or 6 degrees. So it's shown this way, that way. Also shows on the this plan right here, measuring 6 inch is about 20 feet. All these, and this is the scale at 140.
Is there any point that's over 10%?
Toward the end, which is further out here somewhere. So just to cover over what Joe was talking about. Most of this would be like 2 or 3 feet, and probably just 1 foot high, so it's like a parapet wall. But then when it gets to here, it's up to 10 feet. We're right now have it scaled at 8 feet at 1.4. We're assuming that it may differ outside.
What's the edge of this property compared to the driveway?
The driveway is 10 feet away from that.
Okay.
And that's just the wall at the edge, so it doesn't create a greater slope at the property line. It keeps the slope as is, so that the wall just cuts into it, so there's no drainage issue or change as far as water is concerned. This driveway actually slopes toward the center of the curve, or toward, inwardly to the site itself. So wherever you're at, it would drain toward the center and then collect down at the bottom here, where we created another collected area. So this small area just collects about this much area, but most of it will go through because the whole driveway is gravel with item 4 on it. So there's no non-permeable surface. It just goes right through. Historically, the whole site drains very well. There's never been any washout issue historically on this site, and we're trying to keep that as is. It's basically over designed because we have 2 collecting areas plus the last one at the bottom of the driveway. These are oversized to a point where we're assuming that basically the one on the lower part of the site is never going to be filled. 100 year maybe, but even when it rains a whole week, the upper retainage area would most likely fill up a little and trickle into the lower half.
This is quite a steep slope from the upper, am I reading this right? From the upper road down to the house? That's a steep slope.
Right now, if you follow my hand, this whole property right here, the water drains this way naturally. And then over here, it drains this way. So somewhere in between, it kind of goes both ways. So everything from here goes this way. The water goes this way. If it were to collect, let's say if this whole site was asphalt, the water would actually drain this way and that way, never toward, a small part goes toward the house. And this is a very generous area compared to the steep areas over here. But as I mentioned, the water kind of just collects in certain areas, pockets. There's a lot of irregularities as far as the what's underneath the soil. There's pockets of this buildup of bedrock where water doesn't even pass it because under the ground it collects and doesn't go anywhere.
And I'm not trying to be a smart guy here. this water comes down. Okay, you say it flows naturally off
Yes.
the property.
It,
Do you have a buffer zone to protect the house?
what do you mean buffer zone? Like,
Well, just in case you,
Yeah, there's.
Oh,
we-
yes,
we
yes.
Previously discussed the
It,
drainage
it,
back.
it's right here, it's right near the house where any water, from this portion, actually not this portion, because this won't reach the house, but anything in this area goes toward the house, gets collected here. This is also used for water that this portion of the site collects from the roof, also drains in here, and then this will go into the first retainage area, which is in the middle of the site. So yes, the water won't go toward the building, everything goes away from the building. You know, in all directions, it will go this way, that way. And even on this side, which is the north part and up against, you know, the hill here, it goes toward a collector.
And have you marked the elevation of the ground floor of the house?
Yes, it's indicated here, 759.
Some-
One thing I should bring to your attention, I wasn't aware of the height of the wall, at least initially. Even a wall for the creation of the driveway, there's limitations. And in the village code, the wall cannot be higher than 4 feet in the front yard and no higher than, I believe, 6 feet in the side and rear yard. So you may want to think about some type of staggered wall at some point.
This wall goes down. I mean, it's not like a fence that's above natural grade. They're cutting the grade down to make the driveway.
Okay, but you're saying there's a 15-foot wall.
No, the wall is designed to be up to 10. We're not, it's not gonna, hopefully it's not gonna be a 10, but,
But what I'm saying is anything over 4 in the front yard needs a variance, and anything over 6 in the side and rear needs a variance. So let's think about that in the next couple of days. It sounds like it's very close. I heard 15, that's why
Right.
and I thought maybe you had to make it 15 to accommodate the 10%
No.
slope going up to the house.
just to kind of go with the heights, for this whole wall from the beginning, it's actually gonna be like 1 foot. And then
You're good up
eventually,
to 4.
and then, you know, it may be up to, 4 somewhere here, and then one small part, maybe, up to 8.
I will look at the plan tomorrow to determine what the front and side is.
Yeah.
The orientation of the house and the front yard, when you make that determination.
If I can interject, the plans on the first sheet calls out for a 15-foot high gravity wall.
Which sheet?
The first sheet, D0-01. Sharing it on the screen here. We have a 15-foot high wall here, and we have a 6-foot high wall over there.
Oh, yeah, I see the sign. Yep, okay, I forgot to change that. That was from an older design.
That was from an older iteration.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's give that some thought.
This
Yep.
And then I'll look at it tomorrow and figure out exactly what the front and rear is. Just the orientation of the house really isn't facing the road necessarily, but.
Visual maybe showing.
Thank you, Joe, for pointing that out. Joe mentioned, I'm just gonna point at the sheets, you know, this one and that one. This is the construction entrance. The concrete washout area that he pointed out earlier before is here. This is the concrete washout area. This is a construction entrance, which is used so this way it doesn't drag dirt on the regular roads. The stockpile for topsoil is this here and that there.
And the geothermal well location now is,
Right there, the 2 circles there.
okay. And
Which
the,
is this guy right here.
okay, and the cut and fill analysis in this version?
The cut and fill is on another sheet. Which is on sheet A002.
And if I remember correctly, we got about 18 yards extra showing,
Yeah,
or if I got that backwards. Are you gonna be bringing in fill or getting rid of fill?
Hopefully, we don't have either of those.
Of course.
hopefully we don't, but if anything, we might have to bring. Oh, no, it's actually excessive. It
Okay.
says, yes.
So it's the,
Offsite material required if this is negative. Right,
All right, so it's,
the
okay.
total fill,
just speak up so people can hear you.
sorry, the total cut, which is how much material they need to get rid of, is 4,000 cubic yards. That's the second from the right column. The total fill, which is the material that they would need to bring in, if they needed to bring it in, is 3982. So it's a difference of 18 cubic yards. That's nothing. 2 dump trucks, 3 dump trucks, depending on how big your truck is. But more importantly, they're showing that they're going to have excess material, which is annoying for them until they find someone close by who wants it. But it means that they don't need approvals from anybody to bring in fill.
Analysis, no chemical analysis in the film.
And then we also, what I mentioned as far as the site draining, there's irregularities underground. I mean, we see a slope going one way, but underground, there might be a little mound of rock, which captures certain amount of water, and then it keeps the water in one spot rather than go down the hill. But there's also pockets of air that, once you take rock out, we might need dirt, hopefully. But a lot of the material is actually going to be repurposed. We have retainage area. All the retainage area is not being dug down from virgin earth. It's actually being built up. And it's all adjacent to the road, which is also a small segment here, from here to there, is being built up. The rest is pretty much on grade. We're never, throughout the whole site, we're not cutting down to make the driveway. We're actually using the material that we excavate from the house, crushing the rock, and then putting it to make the road.
And can you
So that's
just,
one advantage.
just speak to, can we shift over to the maximum building, which is, yeah, so 5, 4, sorry. Oops, I'm looking wrong. Can you see, Jim?
Yep.
I think we have 5 there. The double dash, long dash line, which is indicated as red, is the area that will be affected. My understanding of the building area is anything, including, let's say, the septic field, whatever gets altered is the area that construction is going to be happening. Not necessarily meaning that the trees in those areas are going to be taken down, but
Is this the water line?
yes. 2 meetings ago, I believe, we requested, originally we had the water go to the cul-de-sac, but it made more sense to go downhill.
Right.
And it's a shorter distance.
And John, the distance that the septic field needs to be away from the property boundary.
George Zungla and I discussed that last week. 10 feet is the requirement.
Okay, and have we measured this off in terms of the outer edge of the field?
I scaled it up with the plan. It looks to be over 10 feet, and I'll ask them maybe to mark that on their next set, that's
Sure.
10 feet or greater.
Right. We also indicated a schematic, can't seem to remember. What sheet is that? It's like 5, maybe?
Just before we jump away from this one, does anybody have any questions about the building envelope as shown here? Actually, I would like you to just speak to what you've indicated to the board before, which is that you're working to take down the minimum number of trees on the property. Can you just speak to that?
Well. That are not going to possibly fall onto the house. I want to reclaim those trees. Even if they're, but if they're in very healthy condition, even if they're within 20 feet of the house, and then the roots of those trees are not going to be disturbed by the foundation. I'd like to keep all of those trees. Any trees that are including that septic field that can be safely removed alive from the ground, I want to replant those trees right on the property. So I'm trying to prevent the minimum number of trees from being cut down. If we have to move a tree that's movable, I'd prefer to do that rather than cut it down. Obviously, if it's 22 inches wide, we're not going to be able to do very much with that tree. But if we have trees that are small enough that we can get to a ball and move it, I want to move those to create even more privacy for the house and to preserve those trees. So in reference to this, there's a solar array, and the question came up, well, you don't want that solar array to be in the shade, okay? If there is a tree that might be close to that solar array, maybe what we'll do is we will take some of the branches out of the tree and leave the higher foliage in place. So we don't have to take that tree down for the sake of a few kilowatts that we might be able to produce without that tree being there. So I would rather put an additional panel up than take down a tree.
And then, John, ultimately, all the trees that are within the area of maximum disturbance that are intended to take down as part of construction are marked off.
They'll be marked off and submitted with a plan to the Board of Architectural Review, the one of their landscaping approval.
Do anybody have any questions about the limits of disturbance here, the maximum building envelope?
Well, I do have a comment.
Okay.
And I'm not strong about this, but I did walk the property. And I got lost on the property. It would help if you were rough out where the house is going and the end of the property and where the septic is going.
When you say rough, you mean bring the surveyor in and put the stakes in?
No, nothing that technical, just with red paint or something like that. Just so you can see where the house is going, where the property is, where.
Yeah, we did.
We did that, but maybe we did that too early and maybe the weather. We actually did exactly what you said. We took paint and we put it on the ground, but apparently that paint is gone.
We marked the trees.
Marked some of the trees.
And actually, I'm not sure if it's easy to see. So this one. In the septic field. Again, it's hard to see, but I did indicate dimensions of the boulders that existed that I knew was not going to move. Let's see, where is it? There are a couple of trees that are in the size of the caliber is indicated on here as well. Let me just turn it off. But so they're small. I mean, I could blow this up. Actually, it's right here. There's one the caliber here. There's a tree right there that's being moved. That's one or taken out. Another one is here. And there's a third one, which I can't see at the moment, but it's in there somewhere. And I marked off, what I did was we took a straight line from here to there. And whatever was in that path, we used to spring off using coordinates and a compass. And then measured, we indicated a rock. And from that rock, we indicated where the septic field is.
I think
So
it
we
would be useful if you could just stake the corners of the field and just stake the corners of the house. I mean, you could repeat the paint, but the stakes might stay put.
I don't think we were allowed to do that yet. So what we did was we spray painted existing permanent items only so we could be accurate with this drawing.
Okay,
We were told not to.
John?
No, you not to do, well, I'm not sure what was the story. We couldn't go in and excavate, we couldn't mark out anything yet.
We didn't want you to dig any test holes or anything unless you notified us. That was the only thing I remember coming up in the
Right.
beginning. But I think for the purposes of identifying the house and answering a few questions, with some wooden stakes, if you can mark the corners of the house, maybe the corner of the septic field and the center line of the driveway would be sufficient.
Okay. We did put a couple of stakes just for one side of the house, which gave us a good,
I want to confirm they're still there.
okay,
Add the center line of the driveway and just the corners of the septic. That's all.
and to indicate that, I can't remember if we put like a flag or whatever, but it's basically this side of the building, from there to there.
Or maybe mark the front garage door, just so we know we have a starting point
Okay.
for the house, and we know where the driveway is ending up.
And the house is out of the view shed, and so you've moved it out of there,
The
so
house
it's
has always been proposed.
out of the view shed.
Out of the view shed or out of the Bridgewide. Investors overlay.
Exactly. So I just want to make people aware of that. Questions? Rich, Jay?
Nope, I have,
So hopefully that addresses some of the issues regarding the view. There is no requirement under the code that houses not be visible. While I'm looking at this, do you have any other questions concerning the application?
no, I don't. I think that, you know, with the exception of the waiting for the final report from the engineers, that all these items have been taken care of. I have nothing else. I mean,
And so we've discussed cut and fill. There's no blasting intended for this property at all.
Hope not.
Well, that's,
You always have a standard
There's no
condition.
basement, there's no basement.
No,
about
it's a
what we
slab
have
construction.
lawyers,
And that was one of the reasons I decided to put a slab in, because just all you need to do is look to see it, all those granite outcrops. And you couldn't, from my point of view, start to even consider putting a vault in the ground there. The side, even if you just use part of the house to make a basement.
So my question would be, geothermal wells, how do you got to blast for them?
No. The technology is so advanced now. Head of that drill vibrates at like 30, 40,000 RPM, whatever it is. And it actually liquefies the rock as the drill goes into it. And they can drill a hole like 200 feet in about an hour. And then they put in another one.
That's
It's-
interesting, because I
yeah.
looked at geothermal
Yeah, right.
and it was 175,000 to dig the wells.
Yeah.
And I figured I could spend a lot of money on heat before I made up that
Well.
175,000.
the ground.
Let me reassure you,
Climate,
the
it's,
system that I'm designing with the engineers, not this group of engineers, but the geothermal engineers, that is going to be around the ballpark cost. So this is not something that you do lightly. Okay, I'm not going to put a boiler in, all right? This is something that I'm doing because I'm trying not to have any fossil fuels being burned at all. But the cost is going to be pretty close to that number of $175,000 for the system. But the system will heat the house, cool the house, make the hot water, heat the swimming pool, and heat that slab. It'll be radiant heat in that slab. And so that's really the plan. The payback time might be up to 15 years. Considering the price of propane might be only 8 years. Okay? So
The time got cut in half from whatever it was the year before. So I believe you've seen a copy of a letter that was submitted on behalf of the neighbors who are on this evening. I think the bulk of the remaining comments relate to issues that you'll discuss in front of the bar. But I would like, since their counsel is here and the neighbors are here, to pardon me, it's Bernadette. Bernadette, if you had any comment regarding the planning board's jurisdiction is the infrastructure and the placement of the house. If you had any comments that you wanted to make in that regard.
Yeah, I do. I note that Mr. Zonga indicated that he had received a letter or a submission yesterday. And then a member of the board, I think, said there was a letter dated September 10th. I don't know if that's the same letter and Mr. Zonga just received it yesterday, but in any event, I would request that we have an opportunity to look at those submissions, whatever additional submissions were given to the planning board, so that we can review them and see if our concerns are addressed or if there are any other concerns that are raised. I know in the summary that Mr. Zongo gave, he discussed the driveway, and he indicated that the profile for the driveway slope would be verified. I would request that that be an independent verification, not just the reliance on any submissions with the applicant's calculations. A paramount concern to the neighbors is obviously the visibility of this property, the proximity, and the sight line. I don't know, as I understand it, there's been no paint marks or stakes that we've been able to see. I think stakes are probably the better way to go because they won't wash away with weather. So to the extent that the board's request that the applicant stake out the septic field and the house, we would also request an opportunity to review that in order to determine exactly where the house is intended to be sited. Beyond that, the elevation of the house is still questionable to the neighbors and the visibility from their lots. So we would request that a balloon test be performed. Once the location is finalized, we request that a balloon test be performed rather, so we can determine the actual visibility from their respective properties. And there was indication that, going back to the driveway for a second, that the Board of Trustees, that the applicant was before the Board of Trustees for approval. I'm not sure whether that approval was given or not. Does anyone know whether that happened?
The driveway approval?
Right.
Yes, it was given.
Okay, so we would just then, in that respect, again, request that the slope be independently verified, and that
as you heard earlier in the conversation, Joe Zongle is on. The village has its own engineers and does independently verify the information provided by the applicant.
Right.
We're going to verify. We're going to cross-verify the proposed grades on the plan against the profile, and then perform the calculations to verify that. So it's more than just looking at the number and saying that meets the threshold.
I will. Let me just speak to the balloons. As I noted, this house is not within the view shed. It is in conformance with the zoning requirements and the allowed height. So speaking for myself as a chair, I don't see the need for a balloon test for this property.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's an as of right construction.
It's as of right construction.
And as you had noted, the ridgeline precipice regulations, they do provide for stricter regulations as far as visibility and require visual assessment, but this construction's not within that overlay district.
Not in that district. So Bernadette, did you have other comments that you wanted to make that relate to the planning board side of the fence?
Well, just to that point, I would say, in addition, based on the elevation as we've perceived it from the site plans, it appears to be a 5-story building, which would bring, I understand that it's not within the district, but it would bring it to the ridge line. So, you know, in that regard, the visibility is of concern.
Would you like to speak to that? I think
Yeah, I would love to speak to that. It's a 2-story house. 2/3 of it is only 1 story. Well, about half of it is 1 story and half of it is 2 stories. And each floor, the ceilings are 10 feet. So between floors is probably about 1 foot of flooring. And so the total, even with the parapet around the roof, let's say the legal size of the parapet is what, 4 feet?
Yes.
The house is not going to be more than 26 feet high from the ground. So I don't know how it gets to be five stories high. It's not going to be 60 feet high. It's going to be probably around 26 feet high at the highest point. So I don't know what plans you looked at, but it says specifically 2-story single-family resident. So to get to be 50 feet, I'd have to have 25-foot ceilings. I can barely afford to put 10.
Well, based on the calculations and the plans that we've looked at, it was calculated that the structure would be taller than 26. To that, I
Who
would
did the
say,
calculations?
I would request that all the
Oh, you
submittals.
just said you did calculations. Who did them?
I'm sorry?
You said based on calculations. Who
Based-
performed the calculations?
Provided in the site plans that we've looked at. What I
The
would,
site plan does not indicate anything about 5-story building.
what I
It
would,
says 2-story building.
what I would request is that all of the revised submittals, as well as any revised plans that have been given to the town engineer and the board, be given to the neighbors so that they have an opportunity to review them and comment and determine whether, you know, whether their concerns have been addressed or any other concerns before the plan.
Okay.
as
I want to interject here. According to regulations,
You-
building
now, are you
regulations.
sure you want to go here? I mean,
Okay.
you have a 2-story house.
Right. okay.
The neighbors have all the rights to come down to the village office and inspect the plans, which are all here. Much easier to read than the little ones that may be on the website. They have the contour lines. We discussed the height at which the floor, the basement or the ground floor of the house is positioned. And our understanding is this is a 2-story house. Is there any other issues on the planning board side that you'd like to bring to our attention?
The only other thing in addition to the stakes would be trees that are proposed to be taken down. And that we have an opportunity to observe that as well.
Right, that's determined at the bar. I don't know if you want to go ahead at this point while you're doing the staking to mark the trees.
Sure.
I think that might be productive.
And just as a point of order, I'm not sure that you guys can just wander onto the property without permission. I mean, whatever you can see from the road is great, but unless you're going to make arrangements with Mr. Perna, it's not just fair game to wander anywhere in the village.
Well, understood, but the building inspector and the engineer, I presume, will have an opportunity to review the stakes and the markings.
Well, yes, and the planning board and the BAR, but you asked for, I just want to make sure I'm not the lawyer.
No,
The
understood.
planning board can't allow anyone to trespass on someone else's property, of course.
Right.
So wherever if you're on your own property or from the road or public right away, that's one thing, but actually going on the property.
So then you will need to indicate to us, the time frame in which you're going to do the staking and the trees. The next planning board meeting is in 2 weeks. So, that timing is in your hands. And I think that has covered John, do you have anything?
There are a couple incidental things on the bulk table that we need to later this week.
Okay.
Okay. So any other questions, gentlemen?
I don't have anything at this point.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And as I say, this application is, okay.
Stuart Wright spelled hands up.
Okay, sorry, Stuart, I didn't see that.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
So we've experienced machine digging and blasting near our home when Lookout Mountain Road was created. They wanted to blast near our home. We prevented that by having an engineer survey the bedrock, because our house is built on the bedrock that you're going to be digging on. We have cracks in our house from the digging.
Blasting.
They were forced to use a machine above my digging, the machine that you guys are talking about, to put the water pipe in on that road. We have a cracked window and cracks in our walls. I'm very concerned about the bedrock you're going to be digging on extends under my house, the house you're proposing. And I want an engineer's report about the bedrock and where it is.
I also,
Paula?
this is
Paula Tochi.
Paula Tachi speaking. This is in our letter that was written by Bernadette Condon of Lumdrasco Positano. On page 2, bullet point number 5. I don't know, I'd like the opportunity to look at these plans. Thank you for offering that to us. But I want to know, do these new plans give a value to the contour lines? Because without values to the contour lines, and without the contour lines extending to my home and the Wrightsville home, it doesn't mean anything. Also, I also want to bring up the point that there's 4 acres there. So we are very concerned as why you are citing the house so close to our homes. This house, could be completely out of sight, and it should be. We would appreciate that.
Paula, the house is sited to stay out of the ridgeline zone and is well with, far beyond the setbacks that are required by the zoning code. And in my experience, gentlemen, I don't know if you could add, in terms of the contour lines.
There are labels. If you could still see my screen, there are contour line.
Right, yeah. And in my experience, and Ashley can speak to this, the planning board reviews the contours of the site before us, not the surrounding properties.
Okay, however, and I appreciate that, Joanne, thank you very much. However, this is impacting, neighbors' properties. So to really be able to evaluate it fairly for all parties concerned, we insist that values be given to the contour lines and extend them to include the neighboring properties. I mean, you're not just building a home within your own community. This home is going to affect the entire neighborhood. And I would like to make that request on behalf of us all.
They do extend somewhat.
They extend, but I will repeat, that is not standard.
I'm going to go back to the comment I made previously about observing the site. This goes the other way. Mr. Perna has no right to send a surveyor onto your property to determine the contours of your land. I mean, they've provided your benchmarks and deed points and contour lines. I mean, now it's up to you to establish the elevation of your house.
No, we have that, but doing this. So listen, if you want permission to go on.
You have our
to the
permission.
park, you have our permission.
But I'm
Are you gonna
saying-
pay for that? Are you gonna pay for the survey?
And I'm not even going to go there because
Not at all. You will.
that is not appropriate.
But that's
Uh,
not right.
It is, this application relates to this property, and Mr. Perna has provided the necessary information vis-a-vis the code.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I wasn't
Yeah,
offering these
so, I
services.
mean,
I was.
He is going to be marking the location of the house, the field. You have the contours are available to look at in the village office. The site plan will show the height of the property, the proposed house. And I think that's the material within which it's appropriate for the planning board to consider this application.
So let's go back to the bedrock question, which you glossed over. How are you gonna address that?
Clearly, I mean, I don't think there is any way to survey the entirety of the bedrock, the specific.
It's been done already once before I paid for it. I had to pay for it when someone was building a road and wanted a blast next to my home. Okay, it can be surveyed. I can tell you the firm that did it in Pearl River, New York. They're happy to come out and do it for them. I'd like the bedrock survey because I don't want it to affect my home. And my home is pre-existing. This is a new home you're proposing. Well, I don't want cracks in my home and in my foundation because of stuff you guys did.
No one in the neighborhood does.
No one wants that.
He is not an island.
Go
He is
ahead.
an island himself.
And I understand that, Paula.
The planning board standard conditions
No,
always
I'm not
include a condition for no blasting authorized by the planning board. In the event blasting is required for any application, it does require them to get the approvals. I believe it's the bar and the board of trustees,
Board
but
of
it's
Trustees.
made very clear that there's to be no blasting done.
Okay, wait. Okay, I just want to just correct, that wasn't me speaking, Paula Tachi, that was Joan Wrightsfeld.
I
Okay,
understand.
so let the record reflect that. I also would like to reserve the right that we have the opportunity to look at these new drawings and the contour lines and to have time to analyze them and make comments on that. I don't know if what has been presented, it's very hard to read now, whether it is truly, taking into account the impact on our homes. Also, I want to ask, I know that there was a policy at one point that if you took down a tree, you had to put up a tree. And I'd like to know that with the trees that are going to be taken down, is there any way that you can request that the applicant put up trees? And if the trees even aren't going to be, and to screen his house from our view.
I mean, that is something that there is no policy of replacing trees. The applicant can discuss, the landscaping plan really falls before the bar. And that's a topic that when you are before them, you can discuss. But there is certainly, the applicant has the property right to remove trees within the area which he intends to construct. And if you look at the maximum building envelope, I think you will find that it has been drawn quite narrowly, and that there is not an extensive amount of disturbance beyond the area in which Mr. Perna tends to build the house. So.
And just for the record, the plans for the last rev date of August 10th were electronically sent to everybody's attorney
Okay.
and to some of the people on the call, so they
And-
had the plans.
Okay, so but then can we send these, I mean, there are going to be additional revisions here, so let's hold until all the revisions are done, and then share with the Neighbors Council.
And can make sure we also get a copy of I don't know if it was a summary or a letter or whatever it was that was provided to the engineer yesterday and or on September 10th.
John, we can.
There's no final comments by the engineer. When we get final comments, we'll distribute them.
No, understood. I understand that you received
It
this.
was the applicant's engineer comment letter.
Oh, okay. Was
Yeah.
that dated the 10th or the?
I think it was dated I think it was dated I don't remember,
It's the 10th.
the 10th.
The correspondence.
Okay. All right.
I have one more question.
Okay.
When is the next planning board meeting?
It's in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank
Well, thank you, everybody. I think with that, we'll close the review of the Perna application. And then we are going to be discussing the Delaney, I apologize, I keep Sophia's driveway as opposed to misusing your last name, Delaney.
Evening. I'll be signing off now.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Oops. So you can collect those and I can move these.
John, what do you want? Thank you, sir.
Hi. Use application together.
Pass these down.
Yes.
Have you seen this one?
Yes.
It requires a one.
Yeah.
Driveway slope.
Oh,
And
without a. Mhm. It's hard to tell without a.
without, yes.
So I know, Sophia, that you've had a number of conversations with John, although this is, I will point out, the first time that we have had a formal application. And this matter has been before the planning board. I don't know, John, should we just go through what Sophia would like to propose? There are various easement issues and, or actually, I guess not easement issues, but setback issues that our preliminary understanding, if you wanted to come from, pardon me, what's that? What's the name of the road by Claudio's house? East Summit Road, that would need, that are beyond the jurisdiction of this board and would need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals because the proposal as we understand it is not code compliant. Also, you need to go to the Board of Trustees to approval for a road cut. And ultimately, the nature of the driveway itself is a matter for the Board of Architectural Review. I know, just to comment on it, that there's been a lot of the village, the bar has expressed a preference for tar and chip, which is what my driveway is, which you've probably seen down at the club, which redid its pool parking lot. That is a tar and chip driveway. So I'm pausing because I'm not sure the best way to present this because of the fact that we are already aware that there are issues that go beyond our jurisdiction. But I don't know whether Bernadette, you want to speak to it, or Sophia wants to speak to it in terms of what you'd like to propose before the planning board, which I think is to reroute your existing driveway.
Yeah, that's correct. We'd like to switch from the driveway that she utilizes now. It's a common driveway for a portion of it from West Summit and make a new access out to East Summit. The issue as I see it, and as the board out, is that it would be less than 10 feet from the neighbor's driveway at the end. It's only a small portion where it reaches East Summit Road at the end. It's a 25-foot driveway and the proposed, or 25-foot space, and the proposed is 12 feet, so that that leaves 13 feet, but there's neighbors on either side, so that needs to be divided. The existing driveway that's there is Claudio's at the end on East Summit. It already, a portion of it does already come onto Mr. Lanner's property. And so, you know, that's where I guess confusion, for lack of a better word, lies, is that is a variance required, and this condition already exists, but, you know, on the flip side.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The lawyer will stop me when I say something wrong because I'm just an engineer. But the fact that there may be a pre-existing non-conforming condition somewhere on the lot has no bearing on creating a new non-conforming condition. One needs to presume that that condition has been either predates the code or has gotten its variance because it exists. Did I get that right?
In the first sense, that if there's an existing encroachment or an existing nonconformity, that would be a question for the building department as to whether that's a legal nonconformity or if it's something that was done just without the proper approval. So that would be the first step. But then if you're adding an additional nonconformity, if you're increasing the existing nonconformity, even if it is legal, that would require a variance. So it may not be for the entire portion, and the portion that's already, if it's legal and non-conforming, that portion would be essentially permitted, but any additions would require relief from the
And
BZA.
I think you also face the issue of how long that condition has been pre-existing and non-conforming. I think that a driveway has been there many, many years. But that is a factual situation which you and your client will need to investigate. But back to the point of, it doesn't, as Jay has pointed out, one non-conforming issue matter doesn't negate the necessity of going to our Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance to address the proposed usage, which would be non-conforming. I spoke with the building inspector, sort of which way round is the better way to do this. His thought was that it makes sense to go to the Board of Trustees first and get their their opining about making that connection before going to the BZA. To be honest with you, I could make an argument either way. You go to the BZA, they're willing to make that variance. That gives you a case to present to the Board of Trustees. There's no set order in which those two fact things need to be addressed.
Okay, as I understand it, we are on the agenda for the Board of Trustees later this month.
Okay.
That'll be addressed at that time.
So, as I say, ultimately, these matters get resolved, you get back before us. I would suggest that in the interest of expediting things, that it makes sense for Sophia to have a direct conversation with the Board of Architectural Review about the nature of the driveway, irrespective of where it gets placed, to have that conversation.
If I may I be allowed to speak?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So basically, it's been a big confusion, and unfortunately, John Ledvis was not supplying the correct information, because originally I was almost scheduled to be on the BAR, to appear before BAR on September 1st. And on September 1st in the evening, but on September 1st in the morning, John informed me that it's not a matter of BAR and that I have to be on the planning board, to appear before the planning board and before the board of trustees. The zoning board was not even mentioned. So this is something.
That's because the additional facts, once you had the conversation, and I understand that it can be frustrating that a lot of different folks are involved in what seems to be a fairly simple project, but you do not have an as of right ability per the zoning code to put in the driveway. If you did have that right, you are in, and you ultimately will be in front of the planning board. But as I'm sure your counsel can explain to you, unfortunately, you don't have an as of right access. The nature of the driveway itself, the materials, that is a matter for discussion for the bar. And I'm simply suggesting that you sort of run these issues in parallel. But it was really, once this was proposed and the various setbacks measured and discussed, unfortunately, it's not code compliant. So we're not in a position to move forward on it.
If I might to add something else. So the existing common driveway not only is 10 feet away from each property line, it actually cuts into every property line. And Conrad Rancati house.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Conrad Rancati house, it's one of the neighbors who is on one side of the driveway.
The architect that has the big house, yeah.
Yeah, so his new driveway, he made a new driveway from this back door. He has a front door driveway and a parking area, and driveway coming from the back door is also not 10 feet away from either my property or Claudio Guazzoni's property.
And that's
the new driveway.
Yeah, the new driveway?
Yeah, from what I understand, it is a new driveway.
I mean, I believe, I believe that you are accessing your property over an easement that's on his property. I'm not sure whether it's on his property or Claudio's property.
It's both. Actually, the driveway is split on the left side. If you are coming from the West Summit Road to my house, on the left side, I could actually show you the plans. I could share my screen and show you the plans.
But let me just pause here and then I'll let Jay speak.
Yes.
I mean, obviously you can go to the bar right now and discuss with them on your existing driveway, doing a tar and chip driveway. That's an existing road that doesn't require involvement of the planning board. But that's our understanding, is that that's not the approach that you're interested in taking. But that, you know, it's an existing driveway. I get it that it may be complicated about who's going to pay for it because there are multiple parties involved. But that you can go before the bar and determine the surface that's appropriate.
Again, I'm so sorry, but unfortunately, it's okay. One of the neighbors, Conrad, demanded that I did tar and chip, and he wanted to be present at the project every day, and he wants to supervise the entire project. Claudio, on the other hand, actually forbade me to do anything to his driveway and put in the conditions that I am absolutely not willing to go with. He wants me to buy that piece of driveway and give him the piece of property on the other end. So that's not acceptable. And also neither of the neighbors wants to pay for it. And I would have to
It's really a private issue as far as the common driveway and who.
I mean, that you have counsel here with Bernadette. I mean, I would think Bernadette, the easement spells out, I would assume, Sophia's right to access.
Access, yes, but not to repair. The driveway is in a horrible condition. I've been repairing my car endlessly.
Okay, but I'm sorry, it's late, I'm a little cranky. But the existing driveway is an issue between you and your neighbors. I appreciate it's difficult. My only piece of advice is I have a common driveway, dig deep into the deeds because there may be conditions of repair and transit that aren't immediately apparent. But the question is really your proposal to put in this new driveway. Okay, that's the only thing that this board has any purview for. And right now, we're not in a position to approve it because, for starters, we know that there is a non-conformity with the width of with the setbacks of the edge of the driveway to the neighboring property. So until that gets resolved, there's very little we can do. What I would also say, though, is there are a number of other possible areas where there may be non-conformities that we haven't had a chance to look at. The drawing that we've been presented to is very rudimentary. Compare this to the discussion we had at a driveway that you heard for the previous property. There are issues or questions, at least, of whether this will meet proper slope. There are issues of total coverage of the lot, especially because this is going to be an asphalt driveway and therefore impervious. There are questions of drainage because it's going to be an impervious driveway.
Potentially.
Assuming that it is either macadam as the applicant wants or tar and chip, both of those are impervious. Again, I'm not saying these are problems, but it needs to be demonstrated for us to be able to approve the project. It has to be demonstrated that it meets the requirements of the code. Or that needs to be resolved by going to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get variances for the places where it doesn't conform as of right. And so.
And that, of course, so.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry?
So so I can finish. So we don't have sufficient information to even opine on whether or not there's a variance that's going to be needed. Right? I mean, this is a schematic layout of the driveway on top of an old survey, which is fine as an initial application. But
I mean, so as you had a chance to see in the prior discussion of the new house, we had a site plan with the contours. We were able to look at how steep this is. And that's what Jay is driving at. So I think what you have here is a proposal by a contractor to put it in, but it's got to be in the context of how, as Jay has said, how steep is it? How will it be drained? We really do appreciate that this is because of the nature of your current access and the potential future access, that this is an issue that is complicated from a legal point of view. So
basically there shouldn't be no issues with elevation because I am proposing to join two existing roads. It's one of the roads is basically what was before old East Summit Road, which ends at my property. And the other one, I'm not sure if it is a maintenance road or service road or whatever it is called. And the little space between them, the curves that you are seeing, I could show you the pictures. It's
you are going to have to get an engineer to show us that, to lay this out and show us the characteristics of this road. I get it that it's going in something that has been previously, and I don't know about coming up from Claudio's, whether that ever was.
It's straight. It is on the same level.
But
it is absolutely on the same level.
And I appreciate that, but it is evident from the photos you presented with the application that there are slopes involved. And more importantly, it doesn't matter whether I think it's flat, you say it's flat, anybody, there's a process. So you were here, you heard what we went through with the previous applicant. Okay, and Ms. Condon was driving a lot of that discussion. And now you're on the other side, but it doesn't matter what side you're on. It's still a process that we need to go through in order to be able to give an approval.
See, I think the problem is you're non-compliant. And there's nothing we can do about that until somebody says you are compliant.
Well, there's two pieces of it. Jay has jumped ahead to when you resolve the issues about proper, if the BZA is willing to grant those variances, you still then need an engineering plan. You are it is not just a contractor, although maybe the contractor has the capability of producing the necessary drawings, John.
Not legally in this state.
No, he has to be an engineer.
He may be an engineer, but it is illegal in New York for contractors to provide engineering services and for engineers to provide contracting services.
Okay,
So
that's a question of whether your contractor may or may not be an engineer, but there have to be formal engineering plans submitted in relationship to this driveway.
right, and it's not so much, I mean, yes, it's jumping ahead, but more importantly, if you're going to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to resolve the
You
need
have
for
to have that.
variances, you need to, first of all, you need to have that. But second of all, it doesn't make any sense to get a variance approval for setbacks and then discover that you have a slope issue. Right? It's a package.
That is, I think, a moderately steep area. So
No, actually, the steep area starts where the farm property starts.
In which case,
Mine is not, mine is more or less flat where the driveway is going to be. There is a little slope in the front yard, driveway is not touching it. There is even less of a slope on the backyard, driveway is also not touching it.
okay, so then I'm not saying that there is a problem. What I'm saying is that we don't have the demonstration that shows that there isn't a problem,
No,
or that there is.
I understand.
We have insufficient
So
documentation.
what I think he's trying to say is you're going to need that engineering work, and if you do if the slope exceeds the 10%, as we were discussing with the previous applicant, that also would require a variance.
I mean, this is a new driveway project. It is a new earthworks project. It needs to have a full engineering package in order to be reviewed.
I'm actually wondering why it was never mentioned to me.
That I can't answer.
I just want to clarify, Sophia, I would not request a full engineering package from the onset until some of the boards reviewed it. I did not want you to go through the engineering expense. And then if you go to the planning board, or even if you go to the trustees, and next Wednesday, they say they're not going to give you access. Now you spent all the money on the engineering, and the board, in 10 minutes, completely changes things where you can't do anything. So just like any other application, we do not start off with a full set of drawings and then hope you get approved.
John, I am absolutely grateful for your care and help. But at this point, it's also a very timely matter, because if I want to build the driveway, the winter is just a couple of months away. And we are still dealing with the legal things and engineering projects. And then I need to schedule the contractor. And for him, I don't know how long it's going to take him to build that road. And meanwhile, I am absolutely terrified of using the existing driveway for yet another winter.
Unfortunately, our hands are tied. These are legal matters where we are not in a position to move forward because you do not have code access on the proposed new option. Obviously, you have an existing driveway. I get it that you have a difficult discussion with your existing neighbors about the maintenance of that driveway. I mean, you are clearly in a position to go ahead to tar and chip the portion which belongs to you. But you know, our hands are tied on this other side because of code requirements. I mean, we're not trying to be make your life miserable. This is just where the legal facts are. So I don't know that there's anything that, Bernadette, if there's any further discussion here.
No, excuse me, Sophia, the planning board doesn't have jurisdiction over this matter as it stands right now. So that you and I can have a discussion as to how best you want to proceed. And if it is with the new driveway, then we'll have to go through the appropriate routes to get the approval process going.
And, you know, as Jay has alluded, I suspect that easement is quite old, but to dig back into it and see if there are any requirements vis-a-vis maintenance that you can enforce upon, enforce in the context of what you're discussing.
I am afraid not, because I've been talking to both neighbors, and Conrad usually just does radio silence. He doesn't even speak to me unless I involve John. And Claudio been non-committal.
Well,
I think that's a question, a legal question you could discuss with your attorney as to whether there's some type of legal remedy that you could pursue.
Irrespective of what mood they're in, you know, what your legal rights are vis-a-vis that easement.
Right. And I will say that
also the trees, there are a lot of dead trees on both sides of the driveway that are falling down, the trees themselves and the branches. And it's pretty dangerous actually for the cars and for the who walk on
Yes,
this.
I mean, John, that's an issue which you can look at. I mean,
I already talked to John about a year ago. We addressed it with Conrad, and only one tree was taken down, and about 15 or maybe 20 more are still standing. And Claudio is completely ignoring the issue.
well,
I'm going to say that's outside the jurisdiction of this room right now.
yeah, but I mean, that is within the jurisdiction, I think, of well, I'm not going to opine on what John's jurisdiction is. It is beyond our jurisdiction. I am sorry, Sophia, that we are not able to be more expeditious here, but I think you now have counsel, and hopefully she can provide you with direction about both potential routes, and you can decide which way you want to go.
Thank you. John, if I may, when is the next zoning board meeting?
Well, I think it's best if you and possibly your council speak to the trustees next Wednesday, and at least get some direction from them. Because once again, if they're not willing to grant you access to that road, then there's no sense going to the BZA, and there's no sense getting any engineering work done. So for the sake of 1 week, let's wait for the trustee meeting next Wednesday.
And just to
am I on the agenda?
that week on the 21st?
It's a week from tonight, I believe, 21st.
Yeah.
To your knowledge?
I'm sorry.
I just want to.
You're breaking up.
Please.
I think what Bernadette is trying to say, I be confirmed to be on the agenda on 21st for the meeting for the Board of Trustees.
I think, Bernadette, it might be proper for you to send me an email address, asking for time at the trustee meeting next Wednesday, and I'll forward that to the village board.
Okay, so she's not on the agenda yet. That was my question.
No, the agenda has not been put together, but if you send me a request, I will forward that to the mayor and the clerk who put the agenda together.
Thank you.
All right. I know that doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy, but that's kind of unfortunately where we are. So thank you for attending this evening. And at that point, we're going to move on. We have some minutes to approve. And then John, do you, I have the dates of them. Did anybody have any comments about them? Let's see, the oldest set is
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Sophia, that this is so complicated. 21021, anybody have any comments?
No,
May I have a motion to approve? Oh, you have comments, or
No, that was his
okay, all right,
motion.
all
I'll
right,
second that.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Then the next set is 52522. Comments?
nope,
All right. I'll make a motion to approve. May I have a second?
second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. And then we have 72722. Same situation, everybody. I'll make a motion to approve.
Seconded,
Okay,
Sorry.
all in favor?
aye.
We still have one set from January 13th where I think Desiree, you're going to transcribe them for us and then, Yeah.
I'll work with Desiree.
okay, on that. So with that,
I just had
think-
one, just wanted to make one comment on Tuxedo Club. So I believe you probably had discussed this when you reviewed it initially, but it was a type 2 action under seeker. So I just
Okay.
wanted to make
All
that
right.
note for the record.
Okay. Do we need to make?
You don't have to make a motion. We
Okay.
just acknowledged it.
And that was actually done by, that was,
Yeah, I believe
A
the
di-
other
different-
boards did as well, but I just wanted to make it
Okay.
clear
no,
in
yeah, but I
your
mean, we were not the,
Okay.
what's the word I want?
lead agency.
Thank you.
So, anything else for this evening?
Only for the benefit of TPFYI, there are 2 open seats on this board. So if you could restate that, we would appreciate it.
Well, there, hopefully maybe one open seat.
Well,
Anyway,
nothing personal. You ain't,
okay. With that, may I have a motion to conclude the meeting? All in favor?
aye.
Thank you, everybody. Good night, TPFYI, and we will disconnect.
Good night, guys.